Hey, hello, good morning, and welcome to Moed Katan, Daf Megillah. I'm honored.
תלמידי חכמים שדברי תורה חביבים עליכם. אשרייכם תלמידי חכמים שדברי תורה חביבים עליכם. מו אהבתי סוירוסכו Toirosecho moed koton misichosi moaveti Toirosecho kol hayoim isichosi.
Amen. Kedushas HaTorah. We're ready to inaugurate a new base medrash over here. We have the proper setup over here behind the Aron Kodesh. David and my friends have arranged this for me, and it's a big honor to be sitting here in front of the Aron. It says Heichal Nasan Tzvi, if you can see it. It says Hagon of Nasan Tzvi, Beis HaMedrash Nasan Tzvi, Mitzuyan is a shir. It's a perfect place to begin a shir. In front of a Helig parochas over here. It's called Heichal Nasan Tzvi. This is named after the Gaon of Nasan Tzvi Finkel, the Rosh Yeshiva, the late Rosh Yeshiva, the Mir, Zecher Tzadik Kadosh Levracha, who happened to visit Telstone many times. Actually, he was he vacationed here a lot. People don't know this. He actually went to Telstone, vacationed in Telstone during the summers, during Men Azmanim, when he was older. And after he vacationed here, also Rav Yashuv also used to vacation here. In fact, Rav Yashuv used to stay in the apartment that when I first got married, I stayed in the exact same apartment as Rav Yashuv. So it's unbelievable that the connection over here, Nasan Tzvi Finkel maybe staying in that apartment, and Rav Yashuv and Elmi giving this year in the Heichal Nasan Tzvi. Unbelievable. All right, I'm going to start the Vav Amid Aleph, the top. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, fourth line. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Ajihei Sham Zakin O Talmud. We said that yesterday that it depends if a kever is lost in the land, you don't know whether the land was plowed or not. To make it a base up pros, you're dependent on whether there's trees or not. If the field is surrounded by trees, we assume that it was plowed under because we need the plowing to produce healthy trees. But if there's no trees, then the Tanakama holds you could rely on the fact you would say that it's not plowed under, and you would have to be choshish for the kever. And Rabbi Yehuda argues and says you can never rely on trees, you have to rely on the Talmud Chacham. Only the Talmud Chacham can tell you whether the kever was plowed under or not. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Asher Hesham Zakin or Talmud, you needed an elder statesman or a Talmud. Talmud Chacham. Not everyone pays attention to the fact whether there was a buried person over there in the land, because they don't really care about the halacha so much, but Talmud Chacham is more medactic in halacha, he cares more. We learn from Rabbi Yehuda, any Talmud Chacham that's in a town, all the matters of the town are dependent on him. They're all dependent. You have to rely on his word. They're all halachic matters. I don't think it means any communal matters, but it means halachic matters. It's all dependent on the Talmud Chacham. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Matzah Evan Mitzuyenis Tachtea Tame. If you find, now we talked yesterday, if you have a field surrounded on four sides by lime or something like that, it's a tzion, meaning they marked it as an area where there's graves. Let's say you just found one rock where there's lime on it. Tachtea Tame, we assume that underneath it, directly underneath it, it's a dead person. Shtayim, if there's two rocks, there's two rocks and each have lime on them. If there's a line of lime between them, Tame, then under both rocks and also under the line is Tame. If there's no line joining the rocks, so then under the rocks is Tame. But between the rocks, that area is Tahor. The Avagav the Lake of Chorish. So the Gemara asks, even if there's no plow, the area is not plowed, Vatanya, Matza Evan Achas Mitsuyanas Tachtea Tame. Shnayim, if you find one mark, so that underneath this Tame, Shnayim, Mish Chorish Beneyan Tor. If the area is plowed under, it looks like it's been plowed between them, so then it's Tor. And if it doesn't look like it's plowed under, even if there's no line there, seemingly the Bryce is saying, then it would still be tummy. The reason being that if there's a plow between the two, it's plowed under, so then we can assume it's a base up process, and the base up process is only the Rabbanan. So the Rabbanan Mekel over here, because it's the suffix even whether there was it's a sveka, the suffix whether there was a mace there, and suffix whether it was plowed under. But if it wasn't plowed under, then it would be tummy, even though there's no lime. Seemingly the price is more machmer. Rav Papa Haka Kshasid Shafach al Roshein Amruda Lakan Lakan. This brisa is talking where there is lime between the two. It's just talking about where the main part of the lime is on top of the rocks. There's a thin line of lime going between the two rocks. If there's a chorish b'nei and tor, if it's plowed under between, it looks like it's plowed under, even though there's lime there. So where the emor machmas chorish who the ikful, we could say the reason the line became thin, became peeled away, is because of the plow. So then it's tor. It's tor because of the sveka, like we mentioned before. And if there's no evidence of the land being plowed, so then we can assume that it was just the person really did mark it, and it was a thin line between them, and we assume it's a real marker, and it's tummy. If you have one meitzar is a border, a boundary, one border of a field has a line on it, so that under the whole line is tummy, but the rest of the side we assume is tor. Otherwise, they would have put four lines. Or the same thing if you have two lines, even though they're touching each other, the whole field is still tar, only under them is tamish. Not only that, if you have three lines making almost a square, only underneath the lines is tameh, but the whole field is tahora. But once you have a box, hein tahora, hein tahora, we assume it's a marker for the field, so therefore directly underneath the marker is tar, because you don't want a person to come to the line and be mile al tuma on the line. So directly underneath the line is tar, but the whole sada is tmei. And how do you know directly right after the line it's tummy right away? Because we said that you don't put the line far away. You put it right next to the tumah, and not directly over the tumah, right next to it. So therefore, if you take one step in, you'll be tummy, but under the lines you'll be tar. V'yotzen af ala kilayim. V'yotze, even on the kilayim, meaning on Chol Moed, we send agents to go and to uproot the kilayim, or to tell people to uproot the kilayim in their field. V'kilayim b'chol shamoy nafkinan. Do you set out on Chol Moed to go uproot the kilayim? V'araminhu, what the Brisa says, be'echad ba'adar mashmin al shkolim al kilayim. We learned numerous places in Mizach Shkolim, in other Masechtas, that on Adar you start talking about, you tell people to bring the shkal, the machzah shekel, you tell people not to plant kilayim. Chamisha sar bo karnas Megillah. The 15th of Adar you read the Megillah B'krach in the walled city. The Yosem Makavitz Tzrachim. You go to take the thorns off the path. People, all the Golim, have to go through the highways, or the major pathways, in order to get to Yerushalayim, Lasakin and Rachovos, to fix up the side streets, Lamun Mikvos, to measure the mikvos, to make sure they have enough water when the people are tovel to come to the base of Mikdash. They do all the public needs already on the 15th of Adar, and they mark the graves, and they also, because people are going to come, all their regalim, we want to make sure the Kohanim don't mal al Tumah, they don't step over Tumah. And we also we send the agents out to uproot the Kilayim. So how do we answer this question? The Raisa says you're already on Tedvav Adar, not Tedvav, not Ted Zayin Nisan. If it's a early growing crops, you send it out 15th of Adar. If they're late growing crops, you send it out twice. The second time you send it out for the late growing crops that you start planting in Nisan. A different answer Zroim are planted earlier. Seeds, grain seeds, are planted already in other. Yerakos, vegetables and fruit trees, those are planted later in Nisan, so that's why the second agents go out. Amar Vasir, Yochanan, Lo Shana Lo She'ein Nisan Nikar. This whole discussion is only when the sprouting is not recognizable. Nisan Nikar Yotzin Alein. If it even is planted earlier than Tedva of Adar, if it's already the sprouting is already Nikar, so agents are sent out even earlier than the 15th of Adar to make sure to uproot the Kilayim. Why Chol Shamoy? Why do you do it earlier? And Nisan do it before Pesach. Amar Rav Yaakov, Amar Yochanan, Mishum Schar Pula. Because of the cost of the work, you have to pay these agents. The Musli Gaban, they're going to give you a cheaper rate. Why are they going to give you a cheaper rate? Because it's Chol Moed, and we're going to learn later on. Chol Moed, you're not allowed to take. This is answering a lot of Rishonim's question. In Chol Moed, you're not allowed to pay people for the work. You're not allowed to take payment. You're not allowed to hire yourself out for work. We're going to learn that for a mitzvah, though, you are allowed to hire yourself for work, but only for the bare minimum. It has the din of a davar avid, right? A davar avid is mutter as long as there's a minimal violation of chol hamoed, either a tircha mu'at, and davar avid is mutter, a little bit of a tircha, or if there's a mitzvah involved, so then davar avid is mutter. So therefore, the mitzvah of uprooting the kilayim, we know that even Mekayim Kilayim is could you get Malchus according to Rabbi Akiva. So to uproot Kilayim is a mitzvah. So therefore, you're allowed to accept Schar Pa'ula on Chol HaMoed, but only the minimum. You only have to take the minimum, meaning the same thing as Schar Batola, how much you would take for sitting and watching something or doing nothing, babysitting, the minimum wage basically. Only the minimum wage you're allowed to take. That would go based on what Medina you're in. Here, I think the minimum wage is 30 shekel an hour. In America, I don't know if it was $15 an hour. The minimum wage you're allowed to take, and that's all they can take. And Chol HaMoed is a time when you can take the minimum wage. You can't take more. Only Davar Ave, only minimum wage. That's my Chiddush. We're going to see a lot more of my Chiddush as I go on, because there's questions and there's answers in the Gemara. And the Mishnah don't have a clear answer. I feel that I'm entitled to offer my opinion. All right. If it's clear in the Rishonim, all the Rishonim are masking. I'm not going to argue on the Rishonim, but if the Rishonim ask questions, sometimes the questions are better than the answers. I feel free to offer my own interpretations. You can decide if you like them or not. I'm not saying you should depend on them on halacha, but that's the way it is. All right. When you pay these agents to go out and go uproot kilayim from the field, we pay them from the funds of the Beis Hamikdash. If you think the people who the agents go out, they're allowed to charge the people the people who own the fields where they're uprooting the kilayim as a service for them. We'll see it's actually beneficial because it's uprooting the weeds. Kilayim don't grow so well and they cause a lot of weeds. Why do we care? To save money, right? We were saving money, so we make it do it on Chol HaMoed. Chol HaMoed, they can only charge minimum wage. Let them go out. If they're getting paid by the owners of the field, why do we care how much the owners of the field? Let the owners of the field pay the high price, right, for taking out kilayim, for uprooting, for gardening their fields. So, because we care, we're taking Shulchan Lishka, we don't want to use Beis Hamikdash money unnecessarily, we go for the cheaper rate. Adkam, how much kilayim do you have to uproot, or when do you have to uproot kilayim? Amar Shmuel Bar Yitzchak, Ka'osa Shani, that we can learn in Mesachas Kilayim, Kol Sa Sheyesh Bar Rova, any saw a piece of land which grows crops, it has a rova. A rova is a rova hakav, which is 1/24 of a saw. Zera mimin acher. If the ratio of kilayim to the good plant is 1/24, you might, then you have to get rid of the kilayim. If it's less than 1/24, you're allowed to keep the kilayim. It's considered batal barov. Tanya, Bryce says, we have a Bryce that says, in the agents, it wasn't based on whether it's 1/24 of kilayim in the field. They would actually declare, I don't know how to be able to declare someone else's field ownerless, but they're able to declare hefker based in hefker. Hefker based in hefker allows them to declare another person's field hefker. So it doesn't seemingly depend on whether there's even if there's less than 1/24, they would be mafkir the whole field. Lo kash. The Gemara says kan kodem takana kan la'achar. Takana, it depends. The original said when we said yemai, that was talking about before the takana, and hefker was after the takana. The sanya, what was the takana? Rishona you okrin mashlicha they behemtan. Originally, they were oker, the agents, the shluchim that went out. They uprooted from the field, mashlicha they behemtan, and they uprooted these weeds, these kilayim, and they were thrown in front of the animals to eat. These owners of the field who had planted kilayim were getting benefit out of two happy things made them happy. One thing is they were removing the weeds. And secondly, they were feeding their animals for them. So they were masakin, the that the agents should uproot the kilayim and throw it on the roads, and so the animals shouldn't be fed. Still, simcha gedol, they were still very happy. These owners, shemanashkan, so they're saying, at least they uprooted the weeds. Finally, they made the akana to make people not want to plant kilayim. They declared the entire field ownerless, hefker based on hefker, and therefore, even if there was a minimal amount of kilayim, they would declare the field hefkerless in order they shouldn't benefit at all. And once it's ownerless, you're not responsible to take out the kilayim anymore. There's only kilayim is an isser on your mammon, is not an isser on your. It's not an isser be'etzem, it's an isser of benefiting from the kilayim. If it's an ownerless field, there is no isser of kilayim. This is a bit of a chiddush, but it's true also. There's no isser of kilayim on ownerless fields. Mishnah says, "Relazim and Yaakov Omer Moshkin es hamayim ilan leilan." We're back to Hilchos Kol Moed. You're allowed. We talked about this earlier. Zebon Yaakov holds if you have water, a puddle of water in your field, and it's grouped around one tree. You have an orchard, you have fruit-bearing trees. So you're allowed to make a small canal from one tree to another. It's a tircha mu'at. As long as you don't do it for the entire field, that would be a tircha meruba. And even with davar avid, it's not allowed. What I see is only allows it with davar avid. Zrayim shalashasu lifnei moed lo yashke b'moed. Additional teaching of Elazar ben Yaakov that seeds that were planted that do not normally need water. You can't add water during the moed because that's just harvacha. It's a profit that makes them grow better. They could survive without the water. Even though it would be tircha mu'ad, it wouldn't be davar avid. The chamim allow you bazel. The chamim we see is Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir's shita is that even if tarvacha, that's called davar avid, even to make profit, because what's the reason of Rabbi Meir? The svar of Rabbi Meir is that of course the heter is davar avid, it's you're losing money, but right, if you don't make money, it's also davar avid. If you're not being marviach, anyone who opens a store and they don't lose money, right? They're not making any money. You put $10,000 to open a store, and you make your $10,000 back, and you're not making any profit. Every day you spend preparing the food $1,000, and you only make $1,000 back. That's davar avid. You need money to live on. So that's right, Meir Svara, that harvacha, profit is part of davar avid. If you don't profit from something, that's called losing money. Therefore, they allow you to do. Both cases, they allow you to do. They allow you to water the entire field, and they allow you to make the plants grow better because that'll be a profit. They'll be appraised at a higher value, and you'll be able to sell it. And therefore, even tircha meruba would be allowed according to Rabbi Meir, because tircha meruba for a davar ha'avid is the same thing as tircha mu'at for harvacha. Amar Rav Yehuda, Gemara says, Amar Rav Yehuda, Haisa sada mitunenes mutter. If the field was a moist field, meaning that it normally had moisture in it, and now it became dried out on Chol HaMoed. So even Elazar ben Yaakov would be moda that you're allowed to do tircha meruba not tircha meruba. The second halacha for Zroim, shalashasu lifnei HaMoed, plants that didn't. That was only talking about plants that normally don't need water. But if it was a moist field and they needed water, so then obviously Yaakov would agree that it's tir. That's what he says. mutter, it's mutter to be to water them because it's a tircha muat. It's supposed to the ratio is on a tircha muat. It's tircha muat. And we said you can't water the plants, but Moed plants that don't normally need to be watered. Plants that need to be watered. Like you said, if a field is normally a moist field, that's the same din as if it was shasul lefnei hamoed. Ein mashkin sada garid b'moed. Rabbi Ezra, like he says in the Reisha of the Mishnah, that since it's a tircha meruba, you can't water an entire field, even if it's dried out, on the moed, because tircha meruba cham matirim cham allow in both cases, both for harvacha and for a tircha meruba, when it is davar avid. Amar Ravina, that's right, Meir Shita. Amar Ravina, Shmami Nahai Tarbitza Shari. So Ravina learned an interesting halacha over here. Tarbitza is gardening. Gardening is you have a garden in front of your house or in the back of your house in your backyard. You sprinkle it with water, flowering, a watering pot. Not a lot of water. That's the idea over here. You're not a lot of water. You're using Hai Tarbitza Shari Tarbute B'chol Moed. The reason, we'll see the reason in a second, you're allowed to sprinkle water on your gardening, on your the fruits and vegetables in your garden on Chol HaMoed. Sade, what's the reason? Sade garid my time da filu mishavi le cherpa achanami afla mishavi le cherpa achanami afla mishavi la cherpa. The reason being that the Rabbanan allow you to a dry field, even though it doesn't normally need water, is because it's harvacha, is because harvacha is also called the davar ha'avid, and therefore, even though it doesn't need normally water, so what benefit are you doing by watering it? Because the plants will grow in a long time. Now they grow earlier, and you'll have the profit earlier. So at the same time, same thing by your gardening. Even though the plants will probably grow without you watering them, but they'll grow earlier, and there's a harvacha. You're allowed to sprinkle. Marbizin is to sprinkle water, not a lot of water, on a wheat field on Shviyas. Shviyas, you're allowed to do this. Like we said, that there's no issur of gardening on Shviyas, as we learned earlier in the Masechta. A little water is called gardening, even though it's a big field. It's considered gardening if it's just sprinkling water from a water pot. But Chol HaMoed, you're not allowed to do that according to the Rabbanan. Vatanya, but the Brisa says, Marbisim Moed Mishviyas, allows even to water, to garden on Chol HaMoed. Amar Rav Huna lo kasha, Lezer ben Yaakov ha-Rabbanan. Depends whether you hold like Lezer ben Yaakov or the Rabbanan. Lezer ben Yaakov does not allow harvacha. He says you need a strict davar avid, only a real loss to prevent the loss. Rabbanan say harvacha is called davar hamoed. So therefore, when you water the stay love on, you sprinkle water on it, you cause the growth to be a little better, so you profit from it. That's called the davar avid. Tani idach, another brayso. Rabbitzin saw the love on erev shviyas, k'dei yirakos b'shviyas. You're allowed to sprinkle water on your wheat field erev shviyas in order that the yirakos should emerge on shviyas. Lo od elsham rabbitzin saw the love on b'shviyas, k'dei yirakos l'motzi shviyas. Not only that, you could even do it on shviyas in order for to be profit from after shviyas. And kol shekain over here, certainly if you're going to sprinkle, like we said before, according to the Rabbanan, according to Meir, if you sprinkle it on shviyas for the benefit of shviyas, of harvacha on shviyas, that for sure is considered a davar avid, and for sure is going to be mutter. The chiddush over here is that even where you're doing it before shviyas, where you're not directly benefiting from a shviyas, it's maybe not called a harvacha of shviyas. Also, when you're watering them to have a harvacha after shviyas, that is a big chiddush that you're allowed to do that. It's still in the realm of harvacha, of profiting, and that's part of davar avid, which you're allowed to do a tircha for, according to Meir. Mishnah says, "Sadin es ha'ishos ve'es ha'achborim misada ilan misada halavon kidarko b'moed of shviyas." You're allowed to trap achborim, we know, are mice. Ishus, what ishus is some type of rodent or some type of bug that doesn't have eyes. Itamar, come, ask a question. Itamar is the first Talmud. We're learning Sa'adin as a ishus ve'achborim. You're allowed to trap ishus and achborim on the moed, on the Chol HaMoed.
What's the issues?
That's a good question. Ishus, they say, is a rodent, is a masha sham machrivet hasadeh, is a nemalim or kaza.
Thank you, Rabbi Ham. Thank you very much.
No, so what's the
I have
question?
another question.
Ask the question. What's the question?
Question is issues is
Is
smaller than Achbarim
okay, so what's the question?
in the לפי מה שאתה אומר. So why it's written before Achbarim? It would be Achbarim and then issues.
Saying he's the
I
biggest.
think it was, Rabbi, I don't know.
Okay, listen, we have to sit down and talk about this because the bigger question over here is that, right, is that the Rishonim asked the question over here
Yeah.
that by Chol, it says b'moed uv'shvius, right? Moed is a chiddush, right? Because normally malacha, all malachas havol, you're not really doing malacha on Chol Moed. But shvius, there's no problem of doing malacha. The problem is zroa to work your land. So when you trap a bug,
wow, beautiful.
this is the Rishonim question. This is not my question.
Beautiful question.
How do you answer the question? You want to hear a chiddush?
I want to hear a beautiful.
You want to hear a chiddush?
Yeah.
That the ishus we're talking about over here is little bugs, little small bugs, right? Achbarim are mice. You can see them. You know the little small bugs that ruin crops, right? They grab on like little mosquitoes. They grab onto the crops.
Yeah.
Right? So when you're doing that over here, you're spray. How do you kill them? You spray bug spray on them, right?
Yeah.
It's pesticides. That's the wrong way of doing it. When you spray pesticides on the bugs to kill them, you're spraying it on the actual tree or on the plant, and you're causing it to grow.
Wow.
And that is
so you are doing
you are doing
working the land,
right?
Melacha in the land itself.
Right.
The problem in Shvis.
That's why it would also answer your question. This is
the more choshuv thing.
The ishus is
about Shvis.
Is obvious that because for Shvis it's obvious because you're helping the land. Achbarim, right? Achbarim is more of a question. We still have a question of Achbarim, right? Why do you need a heter on Shvis for that, right? For Achbarim, right?
Beautiful.
So what's the answer to that question?
Beautiful.
The mice. Could be we're not talking about real mice over here. We're talking about a different type of bug. Achborim doesn't necessarily mean a mouse. It means another bug, a little bigger. Anyway,
Thank you.
Come here. Was that a good answer?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Are you my first Talmud?
I'm the first Talmud asking questions.
Yeah, it's the first time we're asking questions. Did I give a good answer? What a chiddush. What a chiddush, right?
It's great. I tell you guys, you have to listen to this shiur from the beginning to the end.
Yes.
You have to see it, everything, every day, every daf, till you finish.
Yes, and you know what we have today? We have a bear in a package.
Ooh.
I'm going to open it up.
Oh, thank you.
Especially for my first Talmud Itamar. We're going to give you a present, Itamar. Give you a
Thank
bear.
you, thank
Corduroy.
you.
This is forever corduroy. If you ever read the book growing up, corduroy is about a bear who only has one button, rak kaftor echad. You see, he's missing kaftor.
Why?
He's missing a button, and that was a problem with him. And because we're learning Chol Moed, obviously we talk about animals. So you go to the zoo, you meet a bear at the zoo.
You can't like lead for you can't like.
Oh, and that's the shaila. The shaila is that's why I brought it in. Could you sew the button on your corduroy we do on Chol Moed?
Think about it.
You might have to go to the zoo and see if the bears are wearing overalls and see if the zookeepers are sewing on the buttons to the bears at the zoo. You're going to have to go to the zoo to find out. Oh, we love him. Corduroy. There you go.
Thank you very much.
All right, but give him back now. Okay. Bye. All right. So the issue of Barim of Masada, Elon, Masada, Halavam, Kedarko, and Moed, like we're going to explain, you're allowed to trap them normally with a Shvius and Moed. And Shvius, Chum, I'm going to stay. Elon, Kedarko. Chum say you're allowed to trap them or you're allowed to kill them and stay. Elon, a tree, a fruit bearing field, Kedarko, an orchard. And stay Alavon, a wheat field, Shalom, Kedarko. You have to do a Shalom, Kedarko, you have to do a Shinoi. We'll see why you do a Shinoi. Umakrin es appears of a moed, you're allowed to fix up a breach in the fence to prevent animals from coming on moed. If Shvi is born, Kedarko Shvi is obviously there's no malacha. There's a malacha, you're allowed to build a fence entirely. My ishus, what is ishus? I'm going to Yehuda, Bir Yashain La'inayim, like we said, it's a small bug, a small pest that ruins your field. Shain La'inayim, that have eyes. I'm a rabbi, Bar Yishmael, we tame Rav Yem, Bashalmi, a micro. What's the pasuk? There's no eyes. Kamoshavel, Thomas, Yaleh. just like a snail melts when it walks. Nafal Eishas Balchazu. Eishas, when it's sprayed, this type of bug, Balchazu doesn't even see when it, Balchazu Shemesh never even sees the sun. Tanarabban, and Sadin, that's like Eishas was a bar, and Misade Aliyah Lavan, and Misada Ilan Kedargo. Sadin, like we explained, means to kill the bugs with a bug spray. Kedarko, normally Machrivin, Chorin, and Molim, and you're allowed to destroy the ant holes. Again, talking about small bugs, ants. Case of Machrivin, how do you destroy them? Maybe offer Michor Zev and Otzin Chor Zev. You take the dirt from one ant hole and you put it in the hole of the other ant hole. They don't realize what's going on over here. There's a lot of confusion. The ants kill each other. It's talking about where the sand, the dirt came from across the river. There's no bridge crossing over the stream of water. The lake of Kamal doesn't have a plank crossing over the water. The lake of Mitzrah, there's no rope, no way of crossing over the water. Zayim Nalv Akamad Parsa. How far does it have to be considered far enough away that if they don't recognize the dirt, it has to be a parsa, which is 4 mil. If it's within 4 mil, even though there's no bridge or rope connecting the rivers, they'll recognize the dirt and they won't kill each other. But if it's more than a parsa, so they will kill each other. Wish you a good day. Me and Corduroy. This is supposed to be a present for my child. I'm going to give it to them at the right time. Goodbye. Have a good day. Enjoy your day. From me and from Corduroy.